Property Graduate is the show for aspiring property developers and investors to win a life-changing opportunity that money can't buy. The prize is twofold: forming a property company with renowned property guru John Howard and owning 50% of the shares. John is one of the most experienced property developers and investors in the UK today. With almost 4 decades experience in the industry, he's been there and done that, having purchased and sold around 4,000 homes, apartments and developments. This savvy businessman is putting £1 million of his own money into the new company so the winner can buy and develop a property. With a 50% stake in it, they'll automatically receive a 50% share of the profit and potentially have John as a business partner for life. You're watching Property Graduate. In the first 2 episodes of Property Graduate, we saw 20 confident people competing against each other to impress John, Helen and Fiona in the first round called The Interviews. The panel picked the 10 people they felt would be most suited to becoming Property Graduate 2022 and John's new business partner. They are Emma Fielding, Michael Ho, Neil Wise, Wendy Snedden, Tristan Gordon, Daniel Salvato, Emma Howitt, James Steer, Hamish Douglas and Kelly Walker. Now they're back for the second round of the competition called The Challenge. So let's go over to the panel to find out what's in store for our contestants.
Now you may want to congratulate yourself for getting through to the last 10, but as far as I'm concerned, the work starts here. 3 of you are going to go through to the final and have the opportunity, one of you, to have the opportunity to be funded £1 million in the next 12 months. So this is serious. So last year we had a few disasters at this stage. We had a number of people who we thought were very good and it all went to pot, didn't it?
It did.
Totally, didn't it, Fiona?
Yeah,
It did.
I'll tell you how bad it got. These 2 thought they were going to have to be in the final.
We did. That's not a joke. We did.
And then suddenly the clouds
Yeah.
disappeared and the sun came out. Alfie came smiling in and Eleanor
And Kim.
and Kim and all was well.
Yeah.
But this is tough. You've got 1 hour to look at a deal and tell me how much you would pay for it on the basis of a 30% net profit on all the costs, including interest. You've all got an individual deal. They've all been in an auction. I don't want anyone to say what they said last year, well, I wouldn't buy it. Well, that's pretty insulting because I would have done for the right price. Okay, so you've got 1 hour to sort it out. Alfie here has the packs. He will be handing them out to you very, very shortly. So make sure you finish all the written work in the pack. Otherwise, you're very, very unlikely to go through to the next round. So just want to say good luck to you all. The hour starts about now.
What are you looking at? Is this a tough appraisal to do?
This one's not too bad. This is a central London end of terrace. It's currently used as offices, but it's going to be changed into, it has planning permission to be changed into 2 residential flats, 1 bed and a 2 bed.
How are you finding this sort of working under this kind of pressure?
You're definitely aware of the time, but you know, I think it's quite nice to be under pressure sometimes. It kind of, it sharpens the mind a little bit sometimes.
Are you looking forward to going in there?
No. No, that's definitely the extra pressure. The cameras, the inquisition. But yeah, no, it's, I think I'm quietly confident.
Emma, what are you looking at and how are you finding this whole process?
Yes, I've got a commercial property. It's a vacant bank with a couple of floors above, and it's in Henley-on-Thames, so quite an affluent area. And it's looks like a busy high street, so I'm not sure I'll be able to change the front shop into residential. I don't think that would work. But potentially we can look at the back of it and converting the top 2 floors into residential. At the moment, I'm rapidly writing everything down, and I think it works.
Kelly, what are you looking at and how is it working out for you?
I have a detached bungalow, a standard family bungalow in a really nice area in Hertfordshire, and it comes with planning permission for 2 semi-detached 4-bed houses.
Are you finding this quite a tricky project to look at?
Yeah, it's not something I've done before, but I'm enjoying working through it, and it's nice to know that it could be possible because it's had planning permission, so it's just working out the costs and whether it's a worthwhile project to go for.
Are you anxious about going in there?
Yes. Only one word, yes.
What are you appraising and how is it looking?
So we've got a development site located in London with 7 times 3-storey terrace houses with basement space as well. So it's a new build development. It's interesting because I've not dealt with these numbers before and I've not really appraised new builds before. So it's all new to me, it's a good learning, interesting, but we're working through the numbers and working our way back to get that price that we need.
How are you finding this? Do you feel a bit under pressure?
I'm conscious of the time. It seems to be going a bit faster than normal, but I think I feel confident. It's just a case of I want to make sure I've done quite a thorough job, but not too thorough because otherwise I'm not going to end up getting there. So there's a fine balancing act to this.
I mean, it's all about the numbers at the end of the day. Do you think you can make them work?
You can always make them work, 100%, yeah. Whether it's in line with what's the guide price, don't know. But yeah, we'll definitely be able to make it work.
So we've got Hamish coming in now, and he's got a nice little deal in West Ealing.
Yes, quite a sweet little deal. He seems to lay his figures and he's thinking out quite well.
Yeah.
A little bit hard to read his writing. He had suggested a purchase price of $369,000.
Which is really close to actually what John said. But interestingly enough, there's quite a difference on the GDV.
There is, and no breakdown of how he got that figure. Breakdown on the build cost.
Yeah.
But just plopped a GDV figure of $887,000 in the box.
Need to dig more into that, for sure. Yeah, let's get him in then.
First into the room is Hamish Douglas.
Welcome to round 2.
Thank you very much. It's good to be back.
You've had a short period of time to go through the deal that you've been given. So do you want to tell us what you thought of it, what you would do with it, what you would pay for it?
Okay, well this was a really nice one. So this was in central London, end of terrace building, which is currently being used as offices. And it has planning permission to turn it into a 2-bed flat and a 1-bed flat. And that has been accepted already. And I think that's a really good option for it. I think that gives a really nice GDV,
right.
Because it's in a great area of London. And yeah, I think the return on that would be pretty good for what it is.
And what was the GDV that you worked out for those 2 units?
So for that, I've got 887,000 in total.
And what was that based on?
That was based on, I found comparables for 2-bed flats and 1-bed flats in the area. There's quite a few to look at, so it was quite easy to find out that GDV.
And did you work it out on a £1 per square foot basis, or how did you get to that number?
I went on a per unit basis, because as I say, there were quite a few comparables, very similar size flats that are being sold in that area.
What makes up the 887?
1-bed flat was roughly around about 350,000, and the 2-bed was roughly about 550,000.
Okay. And the extension, let us know, how have you priced that up? The build costs.
So I took a rough new build cost of £250 per square foot. It's quite high, but it is London, so it is going to be a relatively expensive new build cost for that.
I'm not sure about the £125 per square foot though for the conversion.
Well, I looked at the state of it, and a lot of it needed just sort of modernising. I don't think the layout needed too much extra work to it. So I thought, yes, it is a little bit low, but I didn't think that it would need an extensive amount there.
Okay. What are the key risks, do you think?
The key risks, obviously we are going to be needing to strip out quite a bit, so you never know what you're going to find when you strip out. So that's going to be one risk area, especially if for any reason we would find asbestos there. And then because we're building up as well, we're doing a one-storey extension. And that's going to be going above another part of the building, so we would need to find out whether or not the foundations are able to take that. And again, getting a surveyor in to let us know, a structural surveyor in for that.
What would you pay for the property?
369,000.
And it's guided at what price?
It's guided at 600,000. So it's a bit of a drop off.
Of course, John would say, never mind the guide, it's what we would pay. So,
yeah.
No.
My concern with a lot of my calculations is that I do want to be conservative. So I would rather lose a deal and not pay for it than find out that I haven't been conservative and end up short on the profit or worst case taking a loss.
So the exit strategies, who do you see kind of buying this? Who do you see selling it on to, or did you think about alternative exits other than sale?
Yes, I did. I had a look at the rental yield that the potential was for it. The one-bedroom flat does have a potential of about a 5%, which is reasonably good for London.
That is pretty decent.
Yeah. But the two-bed flat was only about 3.5%.
Right.
So that's a bit low to pass that on to an investor.
That wouldn't float John's boat. No.
No. So the one-bed flat could potentially be sold on to an investor, but I think both of them would be for Vitalive buyers.
Yeah.
I looked at the idea of serviced accommodation, and obviously you get a higher return for that. But then there are some legal difficulties in doing it for a short term in London. So you would be looking at doing it for longer term serviced accommodation.
So this could take, how long would you imagine? 6 months, 9 months, 12 months to do that split?
I would expect probably around about 9 months for the split, potentially up to a year. Partly because it's quite difficult to get workers over in London at the moment. I think there's a couple of months waiting time for that right now. But yeah, so I would expect about a year for that. And then flats have had a bit of a bad press in London at the moment for the cladding issues. Obviously, this doesn't have that. But there have been a drop-off in sales for that. I think that is now increasing. So I would expect at least a 6-month sale period. So worst case scenario, I think 18 months to do the renovations and do the sale.
So I was going to ask questions around other ways you can mitigate the business rates. What are the business rates liable? Because as soon as I'm buying anything commercial that's empty, I'm thinking as well, what would the business rates be?
Okay.
Can I get a temporary office tenant in? Believe it or not, there's more and more short-let office sort of stuff operating. People wanting, say, a 6-month office lease or something like that. Obviously, you want to make sure it doesn't get in the way of your development. Mm-hmm. But, Gumtree ad, 6 months office space, affordable rent, you might be able to get somebody in that period. That's what I would be wondering.
Okay.
Just wondering your thinking around that.
Okay.
Was there any?
There wasn't, I'm afraid. Yeah, I hadn't sort of thought about the business rates. That's not something I'm taking
business
into account.
rates and commercial.
This is why I'm so happy to meet you. Because I know this is an area that you're so fantastic in. So I'm going to learn a lot.
Thank you for the suck up.
Well, you've learned a lot today. Thank you for sharing that all with us, and maybe we'll see you in the next round. Maybe we won't. Have to wait and see.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hamish.
Thank you.
Hamish, you were the first one up. How was it in there?
I definitely felt a bit of pressure being first in, but it was okay. They're lovely people, but they've got a lot more knowledge than I do, and so there were definitely some difficult questions that I struggled to answer. But Yeah, I think it went okay.
So Emma with the hat.
Yes.
Orange hat today. Is it orange hat today? Well, another hat today. Be interesting to see what she's come up with in terms of the layout on this, because there's a 40% difference on the GDV from her figures and from what John has. So it's quite a chunk, right?
Somehow John found £400,000 more in the GDV, which is significant, really.
It is, because actually she's got the same build costs, which for return on investment,
She must like to work harder for her money, but we want someone that will work hard for John's money.
Yeah, so understandably she's not offered as much as John would, and she wouldn't have won the deal, but
yes.
Let's get her in and
find out her thinking behind this.
Next to face Helen and Fiona is Emma Howitt.
So welcome, Emma. Welcome back to round 2. You had a nice little deal in Henley. Interesting to go through the numbers with you. Bit of a difference to what John came up with, but talk us through it and we'll enlighten you on that side of things, and you can tell us kind of what you had planned for this property.
Wow, yes, I'm looking forward to hearing what John thought of it. So yes, it's basically a shop and uppers on quite a main high street, Henley-on-Thames.
Yeah.
I naturally had to make a lot of assumptions.
Of course.
And it made me realise that I really do work on my own area and how much you know of your own area. So this was kind of, I was quite confident, and then I was like, oh.
But there are property fundamentals that go across
absolutely.
everything,
Exactly.
nationwide.
So what I saw was there was an empty shop and it was all offices. There was a long-standing tenant in there, but it was something that could be removed. I can't remember what we called it, but basically they could be removed. They didn't have a standing tenancy. So that was interesting. I then looked at all of the shops along the way. It had Costa, all other places, some really good covenants on that road.
Yeah.
So I felt from a permitted development perspective, also, it was a character area and building of local note. So I felt that potentially they would require to be full planning. So you wouldn't be able to change the shop, certainly at the front, into residential. Then I looked at the other parts, and when I sort of felt that you could remove the commercial elements, you could either ask them to leave or to move downstairs.
You're talking about the sitting tenant?
Yes. Yeah, because it was a commercial one, and when I looked it up, it looked like you could remove them certainly within a few months.
And when you say move downstairs to the basement?
No, because they were on the first floor and the second floor,
right?
So they could go to the ground floor.
Okay.
Yeah. So the existing tenant had created an illegal, if you like, sublet or without consent to the seller from the owner of the building.
Yeah.
And so, what would you do potentially to gather more information about what was going on there?
Yeah, I just find out from them, from the vendor, any kind of information that we can. Get that information. Ask questions, I suppose. So then I looked at it. Obviously, looked at the sizes, and there were some really good sizes, but it was a bit odd. Obviously, I didn't have a floor plan, so I hope you saw I kind of made my own floor plan just for ease. I think I'm a big fan of being able to visually see something. So I saw that the ground floor was obviously quite big, as you can do for permitted development. I understand it's potentially in a conservation area, so it would need planning, but the back half, again, as long as it's got windows and things, could become a flat at the back. That was 50 square meters, so that would make a 2-bed. Then on the first floor, it was kind of split. The back side would make a really good size 1-bed, and then the remainder across the first floor and the second floor, you could potentially make a masonette. Now, again, I had to really, assume that there were appropriate windows.
Did I miss where the breakdown of your GDV is laid out?
Where I got that from is I looked at a number of comparables. So I looked on property data, and obviously that's a really massive area, and that came in much higher at 1.175. Then I think I did in my comparables, if you turn over, I then looked at within quarter of a mile of there, and 2 beds were selling at around 400,000, and there's a few 1 beds that were selling at 375. So I basically went between the two.
So that's 795 roughly. So where's the missing 250, 300?
So you've got two 2 beds for 400.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then the 1 bed for 375.
So you've got,
what about the shop?
Yeah, so in this, the shop, I haven't put in the commercial valuation at all, but
Right.
that's but I do have it, but I couldn't find any direct comparables of what was available.
So you put nothing.
Yes, I'm afraid I did.
I mean, all property space has a value.
Yeah,
in theory.
absolutely, and it definitely does. But the good thing was in that is that if you found a really good covenant in there, obviously that makes it very. If you could get 20,000 a year, then that puts on a really big value, and then of course that then makes the whole thing even more viable. So without it, it was pretty good.
Henley-on-Thames, is it a strong street scene there? Strong commercial presence?
Yeah, because you've got Costa, you've got a lot of national covenants there already. So I felt that, you were in a pretty good position to get a really
But
good...
you valued the shop at nothing.
I know.
And you cut it in half and put residential behind it.
Yeah, true.
Instead of thinking about the option of really hustling hard to get a commercial tenant in.
Yeah.
What's clearly a very full and thriving commercial high street.
I mean,
you're absolutely right. And then you could sell it. Then you could split the title, and then that would pay it off. Yes, absolutely. You're
and in fact, that's
right.
what the buyer's done. They've separated the downstairs.
But that helps us understand why you've got a GDV. I mean, I'm still confused. Like, actually, your sums add up to 1.175, but you've written conservative, and we don't mind conservative, but
so I knocked a bit,
mil-ish.
yeah.
But John had a GDV of 1.4, but now we understand why, because you didn't value the shop.
Yeah, I mean, the shop should have been really valued at sort of 300,000, but I didn't put that in. Sorry.
Now, the other thing I wanted to touch on was the complexity of the bills. So when I looked at this, immediately I thought of something. What do you think I thought of? Thinking complexity of the bills, builders.
Yeah, so obviously you're on the
looking
high
at
street, but you do have certain access from the back. I did look on Google Earth. I was quite struggling to get into that back alley.
I managed to get there.
Okay, I didn't. Sorry, you're better. And then it's at the top. There was only access from the other shop as well, so it could have been an extremely complex build. Yeah, absolutely. From an access perspective.
So I looked at the photo and thought, one-way system, double yellows. Right, what's going on in the back?
Yeah.
Back didn't look, because it's a very dense already site on that as well. And there was a small infill opportunity, which I don't think you actually laid out in your
No,
workings.
I didn't have a chance to see that. No.
Okay.
But interestingly, on the build cost, you actually had the same build costs as John had, but he did do the infill, so your build costs are comparatively more expensive. How did you work? What were you working those on?
So it was 1,500 per square foot.
1,500 a square foot. Wow, that's expensive.
No, sorry, 1,500 square meter.
Yeah.
But I had contingencies in that. In
built
that
into your
price.
rate.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what I.
Okay, and what was your
popped in there.
contingency?
Yeah, about 10%.
Once you complete on the property, as Helen would know, the financial clock starts ticking.
Yeah.
And this is, I believe, an empty building.
Yes.
Except for
it's
the
got
illegal sublet.
Yeah.
So a non-consented sublet.
Yeah.
Now, would you look at the business rate, and what would you think about that? Bearing in mind this financial clock that will be ticking.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, obviously, when a building's empty, you're still paying, and sometimes they can make you pay more. It depends on the local area. So yeah, I'd definitely be going in there. But having said that, again, I don't know how long it's been empty. I mean, I presume it's not very long. But if it is empty for a longer time, you can sometimes get sort of grants and things, especially if you're turning into residential. So that would be a potential look at. And also, sorry, I didn't mention earlier, but obviously the VAT would be less. It would only be 5% because you're converting from a commercial to residential as well.
Thank you for coming
Yeah.
along. Hope you
Thank
enjoyed
you.
the challenge, and we'll see
Thank
later
you.
on if you make it through to the next round. Or
Thank
not.
you very
Thank
much.
you, Emma.
Emma.
Thank you. Take care.
So this could be really interesting because we haven't got a suggested purchase price.
No,
which
we
is
don't.
the point of the exercise.
Yeah, so...
I mean, there's lots of numbers, but I'm not clear what she wants to pay. I don't know if you are.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely not clear.
Kelly Walker is third.
Welcome, Kelly.
Thank you.
Welcome to round 2.
Thank you very much.
So you had a nice little deal in Bushy. Be interesting to hear what you thought about it, what you looked at it. And we were a little confused because we didn't see a suggested purchase price. So maybe you can take us through the numbers and then let us know where you got to with that.
Yeah, okay. So first of all, I tried to look at what had already been given as planning permission, what's been granted, and actually thought, has the architect made complete use of the land? Could they push that a little bit more rather than just going for 2 semis, which is what was on there?
Yeah.
But I think I was going to make too many.
Sorry, it was a bungalow that was on there.
Existing bungalow. They'd had planning permission granted for 2 semi-detached.
Yeah.
Pair of semi-detached.
Yeah.
Which looked fine, but it not only backed onto a park, so you had the backland, it was quite a wide plot. So I initially started thinking, well, actually, if you left the existing bungalow but extended it and then had a larger house to the right-hand side, you may have a bigger GDV and a smaller build cost potentially. But like I say, it was just probably a little bit too many assumptions for me to make to go down that route. So I just stuck looking at what's already been granted.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking a minute ago, it's a bit like asking a vet to perform a life-saving operation on a human. They kind of do the same job, but very different.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to, I've not done something like this before, obviously, but...
that's okay. That's the
everyone's
point,
in the same boat, yeah.
That's the point of this, to push you outside your comfort
Yeah.
zone. So exactly, you're all in the same boat.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a fantastic leafy area in Hertfordshire, really desirable to live, great commutes into London, it's got some schools that are very hard to get into. It looks like a lovely place to be able to live.
Now, did you spend a lot of time on the background research, the schools, the rent, the other bits of it?
Yeah.
You've put quite a lot of detail around, the area and the schooling and all that.
Yeah, I mean,
But then you couldn't put what would you pay for it, which was probably one of the key questions we were hoping to have answered.
Yeah, the reason behind that is I wanted to get an end value, and the end value I needed to understand the area. And I didn't spend hours on there, but it was quite quickly looking at a few sites and reading a couple of blogs that actually it is this desirable area with great schools.
And how did you come up with 2.2 million as the GDV?
Existing houses that have sold recently or are on the market now. It seems quite quite an expensive area.
Right.
I went for 2 first of all, and then I added in an extra 2 because I could see that there were houses that had gone for that, even for semis. I think now that the new rail links have come in, it's just pushed those house prices up.
Right.
So once I got to the end GDV, I then obviously tried to work back and think, well, how am I going to make profit from that? And that's where I struggled. I managed to pull the numbers in, which I think I probably over-egged, on many ways. There's probably movement on all of those. But I couldn't get to a point with the 2 semis as to making a 30% profit or any profit. Now, it has been built out and they have sold. So I've obviously missed something somewhere.
Okay, so you did see that they actually were sold.
Yeah, I've only since doing this actually. Yeah, so I've missed it the first time, but yeah, they have sold.
And they didn't sell for 2.2, did they?
No, just over 980,000. I think it was
1.8. They were on an 899, 950
okay.
each.
It said 9 something. Okay. So I was over on the end cost, which obviously is a massive factor. But looking at other comparables, there was quite a lot of evidence.
That puts you 400,000 out on the GDV, which is quite a swing.
Huge, yeah. Yeah, I totally appreciate that. I totally appreciate that. I mean, I did call agents and I did look on Rightmove, both the sold and the for sale, and I went 5 miles out, and I appreciate that there's different areas, but I felt like I had a good...
That was probably a bit too
good-
far,
a
to be
good
perfectly
steer,
honest.
But there was nothing available really in the actual bushy itself, but I guess I trusted what the agent said.
But you could have nailed the GDV in a couple of minutes by actually just quickly checking and finding that they had been built and were for sale.
Absolutely.
Were online and use that as the the working GDV, so to speak.
Yeah. Had I had that, that would have made this still come out for me for the same option, in that I couldn't make it be even worse.
So working your numbers, and you didn't put a profit and you didn't put suggested purchase price, but basically using your numbers, it looks like, well, what do you think you would be paying? Quick quiz.
Well, it was on for $650.
Guided at 650.
650.
But what would you...
Based on this...
Quick fire question answer. Tell us. I'm John Howard.
Yeah.
What would you pay for this deal? Do
Well,
I do a good John Howard?
My build cost is too high, I think.
But just answer the question. What would you pay?
500,000.
Would you be in the minuses then, based on yours?
Yeah, I would be. And that's why where I got to, I was trying to think, what have I gone wrong, or where can I shave? And I think that's why I started it. My build cost was too high. I personally think that's where I could save. I think, and some of the things that you've pointed out there, I still think there's there's very little margin. I mean, not into the dizzy heights of 30-odd%.
So every deal works at the right price.
Yeah.
And the right price, really, working it backwards using your numbers, you'd be looking at about 130.
Yeah.
I think John had got to around 250.
250-ish. And actually, he'd managed a profit of 400 on it if he'd been able to get it at that price, obviously.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
And it didn't sell at auction, which means it could have been out there for opportunistic buying.
Yeah. Yeah. It's obviously it said it'd been owned by the same vendor for 17 years, so it's perhaps somebody quite inexperienced. I don't know why it ended up in the auction really, but then someone else has come along afterwards, I guess, and grabbed it.
I think they optimised the site by getting the planning they did, and then they sort of sucked a lot of the profit out of the deal.
Yeah.
Put it to auction, it didn't sell. Someone's come along, bought it, tweaked the planning, and split it, sold the plots.
Yeah.
Everybody comes to a deal with a different skill set, approach, base cost, etc. Whether they made a profit or not, who knows?
Yeah. It's not the most attractive design, I don't think, either. What they've gone for. I wonder, if that had something to do with the end GDV as well. But maybe that's personal taste. But I personally feel there's better looking houses in a very close proximity, and it didn't quite work. But
I was going to say, when you're spending, nearly £1 million on a house, then.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's brilliant. Thank you for giving it your best shot, Kelly.
No problem. It was,
well done. And we'll find out later if you make it through to the next round.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
Kelly, how did it go?
Very quickly, very nerve-wracking, but I'm glad that it's done.
Do you think they thought that you'd done well, that you'd put together a good appraisal?
Maybe in parts, but I also missed a trick on quite a few things. But I'll take that as a learn and make sure that doesn't happen again. But overall, I think it went as well as it could do.
We have another one with no suggested purchase price.
I know. Another blank space.
I mean, he's kind of ballpark right on the GDV, as in we are in the high millions. This is townhouses in London, so it's a chunky number. He's got 7.7, John had 9-ish, so, let's call it ballpark. But, he split everything out well, but what would you pay? I'm still not clear.
Yeah, and this is one of those deals that's right in John's wheelhouse. It's the sort of stuff that he really, he likes to do a lot of different things, but this is something that he's able to, really sink his teeth in. So if Daniel can impress us with a great analysis, great view that we know that he could work with John.
Yeah. Let's see.
Now we have Daniel Salvato.
So you had a project which is actually kind of my neck of the woods, southwest London.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about that. It looks like a big, decent sized deal.
Yeah.
Yes, tell us about it and then we'll start with our questions.
Yeah, so it's in London, which is new to me.
It's not somewhere I've invested before, and it's in Balham Mews. It's a plot of land that's ready to develop with planning, and it's to build 7 times 3 bed sort of dwellings or terrace properties. So it's a nice big juicy deal.
Yeah. But there is something on the site already, isn't there?
Yes, garages. Yeah.
How would you go about getting rid of those garages?
Demolition, I guess. So demolition team come in, get all the land ready, disposed of everything that we don't need, ready for the foundations.
And what would that cost you? Because I can't see that you've written that down anywhere.
No, so I've put it into my cost per square metre per unit. So I've allowed it into that cost rather than doing a separate one as well.
Okay.
I did put it on my risk analysis section, just saying, obviously, the groundworks and the demolition side could cause issues.
And you came up with a GDV of 7.7. Let us know how you got to that.
Yep, so I looked at comparables. I think it may have been on the comparables very close or on that street, and it was the very same square meterage per unit, and the comparable was at 1.2 million. That's now. I worked on 1.1 to be conservative.
Like
and they allowed a bit, obviously, per unit.
Yeah. Okay, great.
It's interesting you did that though, because were these actually built?
Yeah, so the one that I was looking at wasn't CGI, it was built to a high end.
And they're on at 1.19.
Yes.
About 90k more. 2 of those, 2 remaining plots.
Yes.
Which suggests the other plots possibly sold for more.
Potentially, yeah. Yeah. With the time frame we had, I tried keeping it, I tried sort of planning 10 minutes here, 5 minutes here, and I did look at comparables, and that one were enough evidence for me to work on.
Yeah. See, what I would have liked to have potentially seen would be you maybe drawing a line down and doing a bit of a sensitivity analysis.
Yeah.
Do you like sensitivity analysis with new builds?
Oh, you're talking my language totally.
A sort of a suggested price 1.1, 10% higher, 10% lower. You
Totally
just,
understand.
5 minutes. I know the time was precious, but a calculation, because I think some of those variables could have really made the difference in terms of what, your net, your suggested purchase price would have been.
Yeah, because you had a GDV of 7.7 and John's was around 9 mil.
Right, okay. Yeah, well, the new build developments are new to me. I've worked on smaller things, buy-to-lets, flips on a smaller scale.
Right.
So the numbers are new to me. I'm not overly confident on doing the full analysis, but again, we're learning and trying it over and over again. I'll easily pick it up.
That's
It's
the
not an
point of
issue.
this round. Push you in outside your
That's it,
comfort
yeah.
zone.
And I'm happy to do that.
So Daniel, what would you have paid for this?
So let me get it up for you now. So for the buy price, 2.6 million or 2.8 million at a push.
So you would have paid 2.6
Yeah.
to 2.8 million.
And why didn't you write that on the sheet?
I had the other sheet that I jotted things down and I wanted to present it to you in a better way. I got through to the last bit. Obviously, I did my notes. I used the envelope as notes, and then the whole idea was to get it on here for you guys. And then he came in and we're like 3 minutes. I'm like, oh my, this has gone so quick. So time went a lot quicker than I imagined. The pressure was on. But I thought I could bring it back with an explanation.
So you're about $1 million out on John. Do you think you're $1 million higher or $1 million lower?
Well, if John got the 9 on the GDV, I'm probably slightly lower than John.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm still a little unclear on the numbers, I have to say.
Do you want me to run you through what I've got on this end?
Please do.
Yeah, okay. So we've got the GDV at 7.7.
Yeah.
7 of those at roughly 1.1 million.
Yep.
Got price per square metre. We're going to do it high end, so I've got 3,000. The total unit size is 850 metre squared. So that's 2.55 million for the build cost. I've then got sill tax at 126, stamp at 200, surveys, which are all your bits and bats. So I've got lawyers, laser survey, architect planning, EPC, acoustic testing, utilities, building control, structural engineer, party wall agreement, environmental consultant, survey evaluation, the full works in there. That's 111,000. I've got my agent fees at 3%. Now, with new builds, I've not sold new builds before. Obviously, the percentage is quite higher. I did have a quick Google to see if I could get it. I saw some around that, and so I decided to go with 3%, which is 231,000. That's a total of 4.48 million. We were trying to achieve on this deal 30% profit, so that's 1.34 that I need to find. That then leaves the 30% against the total cost there, which is 3.14 million. I had 10% for funding at 450, on borrowing 4.5, and then all in funding. So my total amount there were 2.69 million. So I then worked it out sort of conservatively, end profits for sale, and site buy price, which I told you the 2.6 to 2.8. So again, I'm not sure percentages that you like to work on in this sort of thing. And then at the end total profit, I've got 1.34 to 1.2 million.
Okay, so the way I'm adding it up,
Yeah.
if you're going to pay 2.6 to 2.8, there's no profit in it.
All right, okay.
Maybe I got my sums wrong today. But you've got your 7.7 minus your 5 mil of total costs, leaves you 2.7. Well, that's what you want to pay for it, so there's no profit in there.
Sorry, I've probably written it down wrong. So my total costs are 4.48.
Yeah.
Obviously, we need to try and achieve that 30%. So
Yeah.
I've probably put it, I might have done it so it's 5 point something. So it's actually 4.48 my costs.
Okay.
And then the 30% profit there. So my profit's built into it.
Right.
So that's then leaves the profit, total profits at 1.34
Yeah, your total
to
costs are
1.2.
including your profit. Am I right?
Yeah, so in the 7.7 GDV, in that, after taking all the costs away, including the funding and everything along them lines, it leaves 1.34.
Well, just looking at your numbers, it looks like I think you've put your profit into your total costs.
Right.
So that's a bit confusing.
Yeah, I must apologise
yeah,
for
yeah,
that.
yeah.
I couldn't find.
I found your million.
Yeah, they're easy to find once you make them, you know. But no, I do apologise on that side. I must admit that last bit, time came a bit quicker than I wanted.
Yeah.
I did have a lot of jotting down and stuff, and
You were
that's
also
where,
£68 a square foot out on the build cost.
Yeah,
from
well, I
John.
will be honest. I put quite a high cost in, I believe. I did look at average, and it says about 1750 upwards. Obviously, the one I looked at in comparables was fairly high standard.
Yeah.
We're going to provide a good development here, so.
But in this
Conservative.
inflationary environment, and like you say, it's one of the risks, materials,
Yeah.
costs, and shortages anyway. So we're not going to hold that one against you.
No,
for
of course,
sure.
perfect.
So, lovely.
Marvellous.
Well, thank you very much for doing that. Really interesting to see the way you approach that.
Yeah.
And we'll see if you get through to the next round, Daniel.
See what happens. Hopefully see you again. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Daniel, how did it go in there?
Exciting, different. It was good. I've walked out with a big smile. Really enjoyed myself. Took a bit of a grilling, but I've got to understand it's all new to me, and I'm eager to learn.
So this is quite a little complex deal, right?
It's definitely an interesting one. I would. This is the sort of thing that would catch my eye. It's already got planning consent. It's got some infill to it. It's located in Dorking, Surrey. Nice location. Involves an Oxfam.
Retail parade and development opportunity.
Subway.
Yeah.
Expiring leases, commercial leases. So we'll see whether he spots the opportunity for an asset management on the commercial.
He seems to think he can achieve more GDV than John, which would be interesting to understand why.
Yeah.
And he, then would be happy to pay a little more than John. But if you're going to make a little more, then you've got a little more room to play with, right?
Yeah, he definitely is. About nearly 400,000 more.
Yeah.
He's willing to pay.
So we'll, let's get him in and understand where all these came from.
And last but not least is James Steer.
So James, welcome back to round 2. You have a kind of a complex little deal down here in Dorking, a retail parade. Talk us through what you did with it and the numbers and how you got to your GDV, talk about your costs. You can see there's a lot of kind of calculations. So give us a run through.
You say there's a lot. I think I could have sat there a lot longer and there'd been an awful lot more, yeah. I was absolutely buzzing when I first got it. I loved it. It was a really good deal. It's kind of in a sexy location as well, so there's a lot going for it. High street. I don't know the area at all.
Right.
So that was probably the first 30 minutes where, as you can see, I've got to what's the price per square foot for sale.
Hallelujah. Someone's talking my language. Woo.
And I actually got to that by eyeballing it. So I went off, I used property data, and then I also like Rightmove, sold comps, boom, boom. So it was like a gut thing, and you can see there, because I thought I'm going to scribble it here, because you gave us 2 copies, and then I'm going to do it neat, but I did not have time. So it's like, so I just, but then just to back that up to show you that it's not just like back of a fag packet, I basically like, I put down there the comps.
Yeah.
And I
great.
even went a step further to go like out of 5, what was the spec? Because if we're doing it, we'd be doing it to like 4 to 5 spec, because why wouldn't we? Because we're converting. So I was quite happy with the 500.
Sorry, not just converting,
Yeah.
though, in full extension.
Sorry, as in, sorry. So like we're either putting new stuff, either way we're putting new stuff in. Sorry, should have been more specific with that. So if we're putting new kitchens, new bathrooms, we're going to do it to a good spec. So I was very confident on that. And then sort of initially, separate to that, I'd thought, well, if it was a full, I know it didn't get planning for that, like basic numbers, I just went GDV 4 million if it was that per the 700 and 700 plus square meters. So if you developed that out and valued that at the 500 a square foot, I'd have got a GDV of 4 mil, and then costs of 1.5.
But your GDV is 3.2.
So on this, so I'll not get sidetracked with that actually. So just with what I did, I valued that as on the back, you can see I've got the GDV as the full 5 units as 250 square meters, which is 2,690 square feet.
Yep.
Times 500.
Yep.
1.345. So 1.3 million. And then I valued it, again, this is where there's so much, because the way I value the build costs would, I'm going to guess, differ drastically to this location. Because the price I would pay for buildings here was not for, what I would pay in square feet was almost the price in square meters here. Like that was how drastic the difference is.
Wow. Really? Wow.
Yeah. So like we bought a semi-commercial for like £90 5 times more, £90 a square foot. So this is like 500 on a sale. So I've done that, and then the rest of the existing commercial, I valued at the gross rent of 75,500.
Yeah.
And I've given that a 7% yield.
What about the new office that would be created?
That's the 800K.
Okay. The new office?
So the new office, because it's currently vacant on the first floor.
Yeah.
And they're extending it if we follow that scheme that they did. And I thought that scheme was really well put together. Again, I didn't have much time, but there was one particular PDF where it was like, precedent's been set, and it gave examples. It was sympathetic with like conservation. So I think it's already got approval anyway, but just with some conditions.
Yeah.
So based off of the 7, again, I don't know 7% yield because I've not had a commercial valuation down there, but my area would be like 10, 11. So I thought this is a really nice area. I'll give it 7.
So what did you value the commercial at?
So the existing, the subway, all of it, just off 7% off its gross rent, and I valued that at £1,078,571.
And the 800,000 is the new office.
Yes, based on like a per square meterage. Obviously, its rateable value is going to be different because you've got the ground floor, etc. But it was kind of with the time constraints, I was like per square meter, and then knock a bit off because it's not going to be at the same rateable value because it's not the ground floor, so it's not going to be as prime. But still, I adjusted it, and I think it was like 761,000, but I just rounded it up to 800 because I was just trying to show you how I'd got to the process. Because to actually get accurate numbers, I would never buy something in auction for this price in an hour. That wasn't my area, but I just wanted to show how I got there, if that makes sense.
Would you consider asset managing the existing leases too?
Yeah, so I did notice that they all run out in like 21 and 22, and this was a 2020 auction.
Yeah.
So that's why I considered initially, and I wasted time because I didn't even submit it, but I initially considered a full resi scheme, and it probably wouldn't have got it anyway. But like, just to see like, well, that's kind of convenient. They're all lapsing, or they're all due for renewal, so we could potentially do a full, I also potentially considered like including a leasehold for it and portioning off some of that, so increasing like a paper exercise. But to keep it simple, I just sort of showed you on a commercial basis how I'd value it, how I got to the GDV for the residential based on the price per square foot, and just tried to, like with the time constraints, just show my working out, because some of the numbers are definitely going to be a bit crass.
Is this the sort of deal that you would do?
I'd love to do, but I wouldn't spend 35 minutes. I just know what my flats would be and I know what my price per square foot is, so I would have spent...
So is this because it wasn't in your area then?
100%. Because I can't be comfortable telling you £500 a square foot unless I've got 1, 2, 3, and I've looked at what's the spec. Because if one of those specs was like, God, that was shocking, the price per square foot's wrong, my NGDV's wrong.
Yeah.
And I could sit here and say my NGDV, 1.3 million, I'd be super confident on those 5 residential units that is very accurate.
So there was some discomfort about it being not in your area, the patch that you know well.
Not discomfort, just no time.
Yeah.
Things do take time, and it's like, I don't want to sound like a cop-out, but because I guess on some aspects, yeah, the point was to just, I could have essentially just eyeballed it and gone 500 a square foot, not giving you examples and just crack on. And in hindsight, I should have done that, but I just wanted to be accurate with it so that I could. So there is a balancing act, and I maybe didn't get that.
I mean, John estimated at 400 a square foot.
On a sale?
Yeah, looks like.
Yeah, it has. So he is slightly under on your GDV, but given that it wouldn't be built out, then you might be nearer. Yeah, we don't know.
Though his profit was 623,000.
Yeah.
So actually, paying less for it, about 390,000 less, he was only 130,000 less than the profit.
Well, you had a lot of attention to detail there, James. Yeah, some queries on the numbers, but no, we've pushed everybody outside their comfort zone, so we totally appreciate that. So well done, and we will maybe see you in the next round, maybe not. You'll find out soon enough.
Yeah, all right, thanks for
your
time.
Well done.
Cheers. Yeah.
So it's finally over, you've done it, you can breathe, but what was it like?
I thought it was interesting. I'm like, the whole process, I thought it to be quite fun in a way, because it's nice to get feedback from people. It's nice to share where like your knowledge is and to share where you're at. So yeah, I think I wasn't nervous at all actually. Maybe I should have been, but I just felt like with an hour that we got, and my deal had like quite a lot of moving parts. I felt like I've got to some parts there that were really accurate, and like if I was buying in that area, I'd be confident what I can get on an NGDV.
Do you think you impressed Helen and Fiona?
I have no idea, you know. I really don't know. Possibly, but it's really hard to tell, because they were asking me questions and I understood what they were asking and I gave them a factual response. But why I'm a bit unsure is because with the time constraints, there was only so much I could get on that piece of paper, and I'm probably quite detailed. So maybe that was a handicap to me in this scenario.
That's it for today. Do join us again for the second part of the challenge, where we'll find out how the other 5 contestants got on. The panel will then decide which lucky 3 will go through to the final, called The Deal. We will see you then.